The mayor, Tony Tremblay, is here today, here this evening. Thank you, Mayor, for everything you've done. Many of you have heard, and it will be shared some additional information later, that on Wednesday there's another town hall meeting. That'll be at Rancho Campara High School, and that meeting will be focused on discussing specifically recovery and relief. We'll have Public Works there, we'll have Human Services, we'll have the Planning Department to help folks rebuild and move on. We're also standing up a local assistance center, an LAC, and that will be on Verdugo Way, 5189, where families can come in and receive the resources they need to rebuild, put their lives back together. This County Board of Supervisors is committed to maximum communication and to maximum transparency. And that's the primary purpose of tonight's meeting, to bring together the incident management team and our first responders to share as much information as we currently know about the mountain fire and to answer community questions related to response. We are here for you. This is going to be a long process, and we are with you on this journey. The county is in shock and grieving for those who lost so much. I'm convinced we have the right leaders in place to support this community, and we are developing the right plan for recovery. I'd like to now turn it over to the Fire Chief, Dustin Gardner. Thank you.
Hello everybody, Dustin Gardner, Ventura County Fire Chief, along with my Deputy Fire Chief, Chad Cook. Excuse my voice is going to crack a little bit. It's been a long few days. I'm tired and I'm dehydrated, so I'm going to try and talk slow. I'm going to drink some water, and I'm going to tell a story. For all of you, first of all, for all of you that were impacted by this fire, for all of you that have suffered loss, we feel for you. Your county fire department is part of your community. You're our neighbors, you're our friends, you're our family. We live amongst you. Our firefighters suffered tremendous loss. We feel for you. We are here for you. We were your fire department before this fire. We were your fire department during this fire, and we will be your fire department after this fire. We will be here for you. So I want to start by saying you have our condolences, you have our empathy, our sympathy, and our continued support. The intent tonight for Chief Cook and I to be up here is to tell a story. It's a story of preparedness, a story of partnerships, a story of response to the fire from the fire department's viewpoint and our operational impacts. My goal is to provide you insight into the response of this fire and help you, through our stories, understand the significance of the incident, how it happened, and the global impacts of the incident. First, I'm going to start with preparedness. Your Ventura County Fire Department anticipates and responds to all hazards, whether that's fires, floods, urban search and rescue, disasters, whatever it is, we prepare for it. To do that on a daily basis, through routine events, you have 178 firefighters serving out of 33 fire stations with 43 response vehicles, 2 hand crews, 1 dozer, 1 copter, 6 command officers, and support staff. That's your normal staffing. Chief Cook, our operations chief, and our duty officers watch the weather, consult with our partners, and look for forward-leaning events. For this event, they consulted with the National Weather Service. They looked at our live fuel moistures. They looked at the energy release potential out of an event like this, and they decided to up staff from our normal daily staffing. And they decided to put us in our highest staffing. So if you remember those original numbers, 178, they brought our staffing level up on Monday to 300. 65 emergency units were staffed.
Engine response.
4 hand crews, 3 bulldozers, 3 helicopters, all of them night flying and water dropping capable.
Hold 1 second.
Battalion chief response.
If
pause it. Okay, they shut the radio off in here. 3 helicopters, all of them night flying, and prepared to fly 24 hours a day. 24 command officers, plus all our command staff. So they looked at the weather, they watched the weather, they prepared for the weather, and they brought our staffing up by 65% of normal, as did the rest of our regional partners in the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, Orange County, Santa Barbara County, Kern County, and our local partners. So we saw it, we communicated, and we anticipated it and responded. With preparedness, I want to talk about partnerships, because we cannot do this without the strong partners that we work to build over our careers, that we nurture and build and rely on each other to prepare for these events, because as you can see, we can't do this alone. There's no way we can respond to emergencies like this alone. We have to trust our partners that will be there. We prioritize having these strong and trusted relationship with all of our partners, and we do this because we know it will help us provide a stronger and more robust response to support you and deal with emergencies. We leverage these partners on Monday morning. Just for an idea, we had, within 90 minutes of the time we started calling for help and asking for outside assistance, we had units from Santa Barbara County, Los Angeles Fire, LA County, Orange County, Kern County, the U.S. Forest Service, CAL FIRE, and all of our local partners actively engaged in firefighting. We had resources from South Central LA drive code 3 all the way up here, get off the freeway, and engage in pulling people out of burning homes within 90 minutes. That's what these partnerships leverage. That's what we do. Within 24 hours of the start of this event, we had more than 1,000 firefighters working in Ventura County to bring resolve to this incident. And we had Chief Todd Hopkins and his extraordinarily command team, IMT-5, here ready to assist. With almost zero hesitation, CAL FIRE approved it and had it here and ready to work to take this on. Most of your first responders that day, most of all of your Ventura County firefighters that were out there, and most of those 1,000 firefighters, they worked for 30 hours that first shift. 30 hours of fighting, 30 hours of battling. In the first 48 hours of this fire, we had 2,000 firefighters here. And at the peak, as you heard earlier, we have 3,000 firefighters here in this county helping us suppress this fire. That's an extraordinary response. And as far as I know and as far as I'm aware, this is the most, Southern California, but Southern California in particular has the most ability to leverage and influx first responders than anywhere on the planet. And of course, there's nowhere else on the planet that I know of that fights suburban conflagrations and brush fires and hurricane winds. So we respond together to help. And with that help, I'm going to bring up Chief Cook to explain our response. And you need to understand, Chief Cook, with lead of this operational response, has more than 35 years of experience and is a qualified Type 1 operations section chief. He studies this, he knows this, he lives this every day, and he managed this incident, helped manage this incident from the beginning. So he's going to give you some introspect into what that means as a operations chief.
Good evening, everyone. Supervisor Gorelli, your words that first resonated with me when you sat there was apologizing to people or letting you know that we care about the people that are out there. It's not easy to stand up here because the faces that are here in the crowd, you're our people. You're our people. We care about this incident. We care about what's taken place. We care about your homes. And it is an emotional thing to see friends, family, people in the crowd. I will tell you firsthand that we don't like this. We do not like what happened. But I will tell you that the men and women of our department rose to the occasion. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about our response, a little bit about how we manage these types of incidents, and how do we get to so much destruction at the same time. The chief mentioned wind. Wind is the driving force. When Mother Nature flips on the switch and the fan is on, and you see, and I'll call them hurricane force winds, when you get above 73 miles per hour on the Beaufort wind scale, which is what is used to gauge destruction of wind, you go gusting over 80 miles an hour is something that does structural damage to homes. Trees are uprooted, fences are blown down. It can lift roof tiles off your roof. And I know you all experienced it. You don't need me to stand up here and tell you about wind. But you add the element of fire to that wind and you have a different animal. You have an animal that is not controllable. I have 37 years in the fire service, and I have seen wind-driven fire, and I have managed wind-driven fire. And I will tell you, it is no different on any other day of the week. It is an animal where you're two modes of operation. Your mode of operation is either offensive or defensive. And we are 100% in a defensive posture when we are up against this type of weather. If you take one residential street and you have 12 homes that are on that residential street, and those homes are greater than, I'll call it 1,000 square feet, on a normal day, it could take 3, 4 to 5 fire companies to suppress that fire and keep it in the footprint. Can they get water on the fire quickly? Absolutely. What you end up running up against here is you have so much fire in such a small area, or I should say a large area, that is being pushed by wind that you cannot be everywhere at once. So when this fire initially started, our operations chief for this fire, our branch managers, our people that are handling geographical areas in the fire, they have to make fast-paced decisions. Those fast-paced decisions are about you. They are about you and your property. We make notifications on the radio that put us in a strategic mode of operation. That strategic mode of operation for this fire was a defensive posture. We were set up to receive. And you will hear that from me multiple times. When that happens, what we do is we go into a life first mode, and we tell all of our people, when you engage the fire, the first thing we have to make sure is, did people get out of harm's way? We can rebuild, but you cannot replace lives. So as our fire companies come in, I've received several, I'll call them hostile complaints, things like, hey, we had a fire engine in our house and they left. Absolutely. We have GPS locators on our apparatus. We have strong command and control with onboard computers. When a 911 call comes in and it comes in, our dispatch center immediately relays that to troops on the ground, and they say, we have a person trapped at 777 such and such street. They will actively stop what they are doing and they will engage that rescue. Oftentimes that means property will be lost when we leave to go do something. So I pulled the numbers, just so everybody wants to know. I pulled the numbers on our mobile computer, and just what's up there, our firefighters made 136 active rescues. Those are not easy. I will tell you, I wish I could play video for you. A lot of you lived through it. But you're talking zero visibility. You're hampered by wind. You're hampered by embers. Our firefighters are human just like you. Yes, they have personal protective equipment. They are good at what they do. We provide them good equipment. We provide them the best possible training, and they are aggressive, good people. And they will get in there and they will get the job done. But you will often see times where you're going, well, why aren't they doing this? Well, how come this didn't happen? Why are they not taking this action? We take calculated risk at the right time, and oftentimes people cannot understand that. But we fall back on our training and our safety gear to go, what is accomplishable? What can we do that is good in such a chaotic environment? But it comes at the cost of property, sometimes. Another thing I want to share with you is this. Probably the most common question that we get is, where's the retardant? Why aren't the aircraft flying? What is going on? Our pilots that we partner with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department, it is incredibly dangerous to fly in that environment. It is not just flying a regular aircraft on a fire. You are dealing with downdrafts, updrafts, heat, visibility, the wire environment. You are dealing with debris flying through the air. They are carrying extremely heavy payloads in those aircraft. The wind shear on the aircraft alone can push the helicopter down into the ground. It can make it rise up. It can push it sideways, and the pilots are working with all their ability to maintain control of the aircraft. When you add large aircraft such as fixed wing that are carrying 3,000 plus gallons of retardant to drop into strategic areas, they cannot function in those types of weather environments. And then you'll see them work in other areas, and it immediately raises our alarms, and we go, well, if they could drop over there, why can't they do it over here? It has to do with terrain. It has to do with an exit. It has to be when they line up to make one of these drops and they come in, they might line up with the wind at their back, but their exit may be blocked by visibility, may be blocked by mountainous terrain, trees, debris, smoke. all of those things, which makes it very difficult for the pilot, once he jettisons his load, to be able to pull up and remain that altitude and be able to pull out of that drop. At the same time, they're risking their lives with that type of payload. I just want you to understand the dynamics that our people are up against when you're in these types of environments. The last thing I'll add to you is this: as we manage these fires and we move resources, the sheer number of structures that are impacted quickly outweigh the number of resources that are coming here. And I don't think people really understand the perspective of time. I think it's even a struggle often for firefighters as you're newer in the position for you to really be able to understand, what does time have to do with it? When structures are burning and your house has been exposed to fire, it can only take so much fire where it becomes a point where the home is lost, where the amount of damage to the structure, and oftentimes people don't understand that. So they see a home burning, they go, why aren't they going in there and putting it out? For us to engage certain types of fires, we are giving things up. It is not a defeat, it is a triage. It is an educated decision where we say that, hey, we'll go in, we'll do the best we can to help them bring belongings and stuff, but with one company, 3 air cylinders on your back, and immediately exiting the cab to an immediately dangerous to life and health environment, they are doing the best that they can to bring resolve to these things. But it will never meet the expectations when you are the person that is receiving the care. It is no different than having a loved one in a medical emergency. It seems like an eternity for someone to get there because you are truly living that disaster. What I ask each and every one of you to realize is this: everything I just told you doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is you are all here today and you've suffered loss and we realize it. But if I don't have the opportunity to tell the story and the heroics that took place that day, the incident management, the boots on the ground, the firefighters that are doing the best that they can, if I can't tell that part of the story, it's really hard for you to put together the environment to understand the decisions that are made by all the leaders on the fire ground. I'll close with this one thing today. I was asked a question going, is all they have to do is spray some water? Well, I had the ability to be up there that day, and I saw a 1,000 GPM stream into the wind that went exactly 40 feet before it was disrupted by the wind. It went 40 feet. 1,000 GPM stream, basically 1,000 gallons per minute of water, wasn't going 100 feet out. It was going completely lateral with the wind because the stream will not hit the fire. I want you to picture that. If you had a garden hose in your hand and I'm going to spray someone in the back, the wind is so strong that it's blowing it sideways. Those are the things that they're up against. And you think to yourself, well, that's easy. Just add more water to it. Okay, yeah. If you have that water, and if you have the ability, even in our trucks carry 500 gallons of water. 500 gallons of water, if you're flowing a 125 GPM stream, I think all of us can do the math, you only have a certain amount of time before you are out of water. So when we commit resources in to make decisions on these fires, you have to be able to commit resources knowing that it's sustainable, or you will be pulling your own people out of there. And normally we don't have any problems with making those decisions, and we will always fall back on life first. But if I don't have that opportunity, like I said, to tell you guys the story about our people that are out there doing this job, it's really moot. They care more about you than they do themselves. I want you to hear that. The men and women of our department care more about everybody in this room than they do themselves. I know them. I know what they stand for. I'm glad I had a chance to talk to you. I'm certain there's going to be tons of questions that come for the fire department. I am more than willing to answer anything on the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis that provide service to the people out here, even in these environments that test all of us. Again, I am deeply saddened by the losses that this community has had. Deeply saddened to see the things that are on. You will see our people out in the community helping you in any way possible to help you rebuild, make sure your families are safe, and to give you whatever you need to start the healing process. Thank you.
Yeah. Said this is emotional. You guys are our families. This is our community. We do care more about you than we care about ourselves, and this is hard. I understand, as Chief Cook said, I understand there's going to be a lot of questions, and I understand some of you aren't going to be satisfied with our preparedness, our response, or the operational decisions we made. I know we made tactical mistakes. I know they were made. I also know that we will learn from those mistakes because we have a culture in this fire department that strives to be better. We have a culture in this fire department that strives for improvement, and we will take lessons learned from this like we have every other major disaster, and we will be better. I can also imagine during this firefight that tempers flared and customer service that's normally extraordinary high may have been a little less. I can recreate this back to myself in just scouting this fire in a small Tahoe. I got trapped twice. And these men and women in 26,000-pound fire trucks fought fire for 30 hours in this environment. That makes you tired. It makes you tired, and it can make you a little grumpy and cranky. So if somebody lost their temper, I apologize. However, here's the end for me. More than 30,000 people live in the impact area of this fire. 7,000 of those 30, English is their second language, and they don't communicate by English. So we were able to communicate with them in other ways. There are more than 11,000 buildings in this impact area. There are more than 100 businesses with more than 1,000 employees just in this impact area. I am absolutely confident in the response of my team. I am grateful for the number of lives that were saved and the fact that we have 0 reported fatalities. I know we suffered. Thank you. I know we suffered great damage, but thousands of homes were saved and hundreds of lives were rescued. I know we made mistakes, but we will learn from those mistakes. And I know after 30 years in this business, after more than 3 decades of dedicated study to emergency response, I could not have asked for a more heroic response from my firefighters. I could have not built a better command team to deal with this fire that I trust more with these decisions. This fire could have been an absolute disaster for our community. We suffered loss, but again, we had no fatalities. We suffered loss, but we'll be able to rebuild. We can rebuild, we can recover, and we can heal. It's going to take patience, and it's going to take some grace, and I'm asking you for that patience and grace, and I promise your fire department will be here for you and respond the same tomorrow. And with that, I'm going to hand it to our sheriff.
Good evening. I'm your Sheriff, Jim Freihoff, and much like my fire partners here, I'm going to continue this story. But this story doesn't start just in the last week. For me, it starts 34 years ago, and between our professional agencies, a whole lot longer than that. We're one of the very few counties that have the wonderful relationship between our fire department and law enforcement in the nation. We work with each other routinely. We talk to each other all the time. We are in partnership in public safety, and that building of that relationship is so critical when you have moments like we were just challenged with. A very fast-moving fire, faster than anything we've seen in years. We can see the devastation as it's taking place. Our officers, we have a limited number of officers that are out in the field at any given time. When this fire broke out, it was up in the orchards and the fields. And then a gust of wind blew an ember 2.5 miles away and started a fire in a much more residential area that those officers then had to respond to do evacuations there locally. We called in every available resource we had. All of our detectives, our special enforcement unit, our homeless liaison officers. I locked down our 2 jails and brought out our patrol-trained deputies from the jail to come out. They were coming out in vans, their personal cars, anything they could get out here to help evacuate our community, do roadblocks to help protect our firefighters so they could fight the fire. Our officers, my deputies, don't have fire protective equipment. They get protected from gunshots. But the equipment they're rolling out there in when they're going into places that are on fire or near fire, they are 100% risking their lives to save yours. We're very fortunate to have partnerships with our other law enforcement agencies here in the county. I meet monthly with all the leaders of those organizations. We have an amazing partnership, and every single one of them reached out and said, I'm sending bodies right now where they're on their way. And no matter how long it takes, it's forever. If you've ever called 911 and you've waited for law enforcement to respond or firefighters, you're waiting 3 to 5 minutes and it's an eternity. But when you're watching your properties burn and your friends and family losing everything, that eternity is way longer than that because you know the devastation that's going to last. But much like my fire partners have talked about is we did not lose any lives that we know of at this point, which is unbelievable to have this amount of devastation and not to have a loss of life, not just of our community members, but of the first responders who were intentionally putting themselves in harm's way. I know when I was out there driving around, there was times where I couldn't see 2 feet in front of my car. I had to wait for a gust of wind to come and clear it so that I could continue on, because I'm trying to see where we're at and what other resources we may need. All of us, it's, you know, we're all, I'm a deputy first. I may be your sheriff, but I'm a deputy first. My goal is to make sure our deputies have the tools, the equipment, and the training they need to be able to support you. And I can tell you, we have the most talented, most dedicated, most selfless first responders in this county anywhere. And they would do anything at their own risk to save you. And that's not just true of my deputies, but that's true of our highway patrol partners, of the other city law enforcement agencies that came out to help. And so once the fire moves through, then we have the pleasure of telling you you can't go home. You can imagine how wonderful those conversations are. And oftentimes, we don't understand why people are not allowed to go back to their house. The fire is gone. The media is in there. Why can't I go home? So I had some fairly harsh conversations this morning to find out what is the holdup. And if you follow me on social media, you got some of that answer. There is still a public utilities crisis that was caused by this fire that creates a secondary hazard for you. You can't see it, but if you touch the wrong thing, you're sifting through your property and you get electrocuted. That's on me for letting you in. So my deputies are doing everything they can to keep you safe after the fire has passed, preparing for these secondary issues. And unfortunately, the fire department can't let Edison in until they're clear of fighting the fire, because those trucks don't fit on some of these streets. Some of these streets are incredibly narrow, you may know from driving down them. To get 2 cars on them is nearly impossible. So we're trying to draw a balance of getting people back to their homes, but at the same time, not putting you at unnecessary risk of the secondary hazards that exist, let alone putting the risk of the firefighters by having Edison in there, or vice versa, having the gas company in. So we have to work in a very orchestrated fashion. And it's very frustrating for me to watch when I see there's no smoke in the air, there's blue sky, why can't we let people home? And then I call and find out why. And so for me then to share the information, so the follow-up that I'll make sure is that the next time, and mark my words, there'll be a next time, that we do better at preparing you and letting you know what the consequences are going to be and how long it'll take to be able to get home. I still encourage you to leave when we ask you to leave, because what happens, as was mentioned by the fire chief, is if you don't, and the firefighters are now engaged in trying to do structure protection, and they have to do a rescue, they have to abandon the firefight to do a rescue. Had that person been out, the firefight gets to continue. It's really important that you are prepared to leave when it happens. We had a lot of preparatory meetings within the sheriff's office and with our county partners and with Edison, letting us know about this wind event, preparing for a public safety power shutoff, which I know none of us are thrilled about. But the reality is, it can prevent fires like this. Nobody wants it. Trust me, I don't want it. But if that's the source of being able to stop the fire right now, then that's what we have to do. And so we were talking about this. Okay, what are we prepared for? How are we going to do this? And then when the fire breaks out, we're sending every available resource we can. And at the same time, my Office of Emergency Services team, led by Patrick Maynard, are putting out alerts, sending it out on VC Alert. Through our reverse 911 system, if you will. And then also we used 2 wireless alerts, wireless emergency alerts that went over your cell phones if you had cell service. Our system is not perfect because we rely on an imperfect system. If the internet service goes down, you may not get a phone call. If you have a landline and it's an AT&T hard copper line, you might get a call. If it's a voice over internet protocol, you might not. The key is when you know we're going to have a major wind event, you should have your head on a swivel for this event to happen. We were fortunate that the fire started at 9 o'clock in the morning with daylight. Imagine this at 9 o'clock at night where it's already dark. Then you lose power in an area that's already dark. And then you have smoke on top of that. This had the opportunity to be so exponentially worse, a worse timing than it was. In that regard, we're very fortunate. We hope to get you back into your homes as soon as possible. I know Edison now is working around the clock to make that happen. I drove through the areas this morning, and there were, I probably counted 150 Edison or contract trucks out replacing and repairing downed lines. There's at least 30 poles that are being replaced that I saw them bringing in to do the replacement on. And we have to give them the time and the energy and effort and the space to do that safely so that we can get you back to your homes effectively. Once again, I'm beyond proud of our first responders in this county. Certainly proud of my deputies and how they acted so heroically going into building burnings to save people, evacuating people at their own potential demise. And they did it with all the energy and vigor because this is what they signed up to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. We will now bring up the incident meteorologist, Ryan Walburn.
All right. Good evening. My name is Ryan Walburn, and I'm an incident meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Those are just kind of some hard acts to follow right now. So I guess I don't necessarily have prepared remarks. Obviously, my job is to usually look to the future. Before I do that, I do want to kind of look to the past. It would be a shame on my part to not kind of maybe pass on some educational opportunities here. So ahead of the fire, the National Weather Service office in Los Angeles issued the red flag warning, and they put special language that may or may not be meaningful to the people in the crowd, but the language that was used was PDS, or particularly dangerous situation. So what we try to do is differentiate these events from just a typical red flag warning, and a lot of this is messaging that we do within the fire service, not necessarily to the general public. But when we have these, what we can deem to be a rare event, basically a 99th percentile event, this language of PDS, and I'm trying to keep this on simple terms here, it comes from Midwest tornadoes. So if you're in Oklahoma and you say there's a tornado, that's kind of run of the mill. If you're in Southern California and you say there's going to be Santa Anas, that's what happens. So to differentiate those terrible tornado days, they use the language called a PDS, or particularly dangerous situation. So that same nomenclature or policy is applied to the red flag warning program. The last time that the National Weather Service office in Los Angeles issued a PDS red flag was December of 2020, so roughly four to 5 years ago, 2 times in 2020, October and December of 2020. The goal of the program is to have these be rare events, again, the 99th percentile. When I say 99th percentile, I'm talking about the magnitude of the winds, how dry the fuels are, and how low the humidity is, because the humidity is measure of moisture is what impacts the fuel moistures, what's going to burn. So I just want to go back to that day to saying, like the chief mentioned with the staffing patterns and whatnot, that this PDS language was put out there. And I share that with you not because it matters what the Weather Service did, but because looking forward and for the future, when you guys see that type of language or hear that through the media, that you treat it as a different type of day and do the whole preparedness and planning. So I would want everybody, the community, the public, to walk out of here today at least having learned that. When you see that type of language, we're trying to send a special message, not only to the fire agencies, but also to the general public. So looking forward now, we went through that event. We had quiet weather this weekend. Tomorrow, I expect the humidity values to go up significantly. That's going to help out. That reduces the fire danger. It reduces the probability of a reignition or a rekindle, or as well as any new starts. At the same time, we expect the winds to increase tomorrow night, and let me just back up just a little bit without being too presumptuous. I've done this for over 20 years, and I've been in a lot of communities that have dealt with devastating fires. For lack of a better analogy, some of you are going to deal with PTSD the next time you hear the wind howl. That's just the reality of it. So tomorrow night is going to be the first night where the winds are going to increase again. They are not going to be nearly as strong as the winds that occurred when this fire started. But for some of you, you're going to hear that wind and it might trigger you a little bit. As we get into Tuesday, it's a very light to moderate offshore wind event, drying winds. At this time, if you've paid attention, the National Weather Service has not issued a red flag warning. What they've issued, and I'm not trying to get into nuance here, but maybe to try to educate, is what we call a wind advisory. When we issue a wind advisory, it's a product that's put out there, again, for the general public. There's all sorts of different entities that use the information. But that wind advisory does not necessarily relate to the fire service or the fire program. So the reason there's not a red flag warning at this time for the Tuesday and Wednesday wind event is because we believe that the fuel moistures are going to be sufficiently more moist and the humidity is a little bit higher. So I just want to be crystal clear on that we can predict the weather, despite all the jokes that you might throw at us, fairly well. The one thing we can't predict is ignitions. So we have no ability to predict an ignition. So you can have a non-red flag warning day, you get an ignition, and you get a fire that moves. So what I want, I guess, in terms of to maybe help with any nervousness that people might feel, so on and so forth, is just to walk through the next couple of days. Again, tomorrow's a very quiet weather day. Everything's favorable for the fire environment. You might hear the winds blowing in the hills for those of you that live up at a little bit of a higher elevation or so. Tomorrow night, Monday night, it's going to occur with very high humidity. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm just going to kind of say it, like you're going to feel it. It's going to be dry. You're going to hear the winds. You're going to hear the media talking about wind advisories and in places up on the ridge lines where those winds are going to gust maybe 40 miles an hour or so. But again, the conditions meteorologically that occurred when this fire happened were absolutely off the charts for all the variables that we would measure. So stepping beyond that, as we head in towards the weekend and whatnot, I do pretty high confidence that temperatures cool down, might even see a chance of showers, or at least the humidity is really notched down. So for a lot of lay people, the question always is when will this happen again? And one of the sheriffs or somebody mentioned it. It will happen again, right? You're in Southern California and there's Santa Ana's. I just want to say, when you look at the map up here, there's essentially these things that we call like wind corridors or wind funnels. And this area is a known wind tunnel. It happens, and for people who've lived here a long time, you must know that. But they mentioned a lot of newer people that maybe aren't aware of that. Try to keep this simple, but when you think about the state of California, all the air that piles up at the end of I-5 before you go over the Grapevine, when it comes through, the fire goes where wind goes. It's just like a river. So all that air piles up at the Grapevine, and it comes through down past the Magic Mountain, and then it wants to funnel through the first place where it can escape out, which is through these 126, 118 corridor areas or whatever. So this isn't a change in the weather patterns or anything like this. These are known windy areas that happen during Santa Ana wind events. So I don't want to say that it wouldn't happen again, but I guess the main message here is there's no indication, over the next week or so that we would see anything of the magnitude that occurred when this fire started. So with that, I think I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, we'll have Assembly Bennett come up.
Good evening. My name's Steve Bennett. I'm the Assembly member that represents most of this fire area. I represent you in Sacramento. And once again, wildfire driven by intense Santa Ana winds has visited another tragedy on Ventura County residents. So I am terribly sorry for the losses that you've incurred, the inconveniences, the disruptions that you have incurred and that you will continue to suffer from for a significant period of time. I was the county supervisor representing Ventura and Ojai when the Thomas Fire hit. And when the Thomas Fire hit, just in my district alone, we lost 700 homes. And we had to deal with insurance and so many different issues for people, building permits and all of that. When these kind of incidents happen, you expect, and fortunately we have in Ventura County, one of the most advanced cooperative systems between all of the government agencies that need to respond in this situation. And I don't say that just lightly. I say that with a lot of sincerity because at the state level, constantly people talk to me. I serve on the Emergency Response Committee. People constantly say, how do you guys do it in Ventura County? Why does everybody get along? Why isn't there infighting between agencies and all of that? And it's a culture that's been developed by many great leaders in Ventura County over the last 30 or 40 years. And it's the Sheriff's Department and the Fire Department and the Board of Supervisors, and then it's state agencies like CAL FIRE, and everybody really puts their egos aside and they do unified command and they work together. So I want you to know that as a state representative, a step removed when I was the county supervisor, just like now, you have the County Board of Supervisors and the County of Ventura as the leads here working on this. And Supervisor Long and Supervisor Gorell have done a great job in terms of making sure that that coordination is continuing. But as we go forward, I want to leave you with just two important points. One, at the state level, as I serve on this Emergency Response Committee, almost, if you take the 10 worst fires in California, nearly all of them have been in the last 5 or 6 years. Nearly all of them. So the wind tunnel that our weather expert talked about, the geography hasn't changed, but the climate being warmer is funneling more and more of these incidents. And I was talking with our CAL FIRE leaders, and they talked about how, hey, a 10,000 or 20,000 acre fire 15 or 20 years ago was considered a big fire. And now when you compare a 15 or 20,000 acre fire with 100,000 and 200,000 and 1 million acres, it's just, you need to be ready. This isn't over. So when you rebuild, when you make decisions, when you decide to adjust your properties, keep that in mind. Hardening properties is really going to be the key to getting insurance rates down, to getting all of us to be able to survive these better as we go forward. So that's one point I want to leave with you. And the second is this: dealing with 700 families that lost their homes in the Thomas Fire. I can tell you that there will be so many frustrating steps between now and when you're completely rebuilt and back in and feel normal. And I'm going to list just a few of those. Insurance companies and dealing with insurance companies, and dealing with, as was pointed out, the PTSD that literally some of your family members, perhaps you, children will be super sensitive. Every time there's another wind event, you'll find lots of young kids, is there a fire? Is there a fire? They'll be hyper, and it just goes on and on in terms of that. But we are here to serve and try to help you deal with all of those crises. And so representing the state, I just want you to know that the biggest question many of you, I think, will face is issues with your insurance company. And please, we have direct access to the insurance commissioner's office. You should feel free to contact the insurance commissioner's office the minute you start to have problems, because they can help you navigate. They're experts at that. But if you have any problems in doing that, please don't hesitate to contact my office. I have a district office in the Financial Plaza building there in Oxnard, and we'll bend over backwards, do everything we can to help you with the insurance commissioner, et cetera. I'm really grateful for CAL FIRE, that's the California firefighters that came down to join the talented Ventura County firefighters in terms of this unified command response out there. But going forward, it's going to be all of these other state and county agencies, FEMA, et cetera, that you will need your elected officials and your government agencies to step up and do a great job for you. So please don't hesitate. And I'd like the woman in the back, just because you may have questions for me or her after this. Patty, would you just put your hand up nice and high, Patty? Patty Quiros is my district director, and she is, put it up again, Patty, there are a lot of people trying to find you, right? There you go, and she is full-time in that Financial Plaza building. I'll be up in Sacramento a lot, but we are here to help you. We're sorry for your loss. We're proud, and I genuinely mean this, we're proud of the Board of Supervisors, the firefighters, the Sheriff's Department, and everybody else that stepped up. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. We'll bring up your chair and board and District 3 Supervisor Kelly Long for closing comments.
Hello, good evening. I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming here. It's a room full, and this shows how much this meeting was needed. And so CAL FIRE, thank you so much for putting this on with our Ventura County Fire and our sheriffs, because this is so important to us. It's only been 5 days. I was there day one, and we've had press conferences every single day to make sure we have gotten you the latest information on the fire. I want to say thank you to all of you for getting out safely. My most important thing is that you are all alive. Houses can be replaced, unfortunately. Items can be replaced, but you, each individual person here, I am so grateful. I know we're only maybe a quarter done with this fire, but we have not lost one person. Not one fighting the fire, not one that lived through the fire, and that is huge. I know, and I have great empathy for all of you. The moment we heard the fire, we are going into recovery, because the fire goes through and burns a house quickly, but we have to repair and we have to recover. And so I want to let you know, Ventura County has been focused on that completely. We have vcemergency.com for all the information. I want to make sure you know that there's also the recovery information in there. We have a meeting on Tuesday for the Board of Supervisors to do an emergency declaration of emergency for our fire here. We've had the governor come on Thursday. Fire started Wednesday. He flew down on Thursday knowing how huge this fire was. Came down. We have an emergency declaration and an executive order to get funding for this fire, to make sure that we have CAL FIRE here, all the resources for you. That's huge. I spoke with the president Friday. The days blend, as you all know. Shocked as heck to get a call from the president on my cell phone. Never talked to him before. But he called because he was all worried about you. He's worried about your lives. Do you have the funding? Kelly, what else can I do for you? Supervisor, we did the FMAG, which is getting federal funding for you for the management. What else can we do for you? We've got fixed wings. And I just want to let you know how much support you have out there. We have Assemblymember Bennett just spoke. We've had Assemblymember Irwin here. We've had Senator Lamone touring. Congressman Brownlee's here. You have our city of Camarillo. They have been there since day one. Mayor Tremblay's front row, as usual, and really on it to make sure that we're giving you all the resources you can. Us as officials, we're not fighting the fire, but we're giving them all the tools and support that we can. We're also connecting with the utilities, making sure there's issues, we fix those. I want to appreciate all your emails that everyone has been sending, questions, because that's how it helps us do our job to help you. And so on Wednesday, we're going to have another meeting, and we're going to have a lot of meetings. We'll have information up for our Board of Supervisors to go over it, just like we've done with the Thomas fire. That was my first one, 22 days at the CP. But good information to get to all of you. And then we had the Woolsey fire. We're working on trying to get debris removal for you. We're trying to get all the information, which is a LAC, which is, you're going to hear tons of acronyms. You're going to find out on Wednesday, next Wednesday, the 13th, is at 6:30. So clear your calendars now. Come, let's talk. And that's going to be at the Rancho Campana High School at the Performing Arts. And that's at 4235 Mira Vista Drive in Camarillo. It's a beautiful new high school. And we will have people there that you can talk one-on-one with issues. Today we're going to ask questions and find out why did the utilities come? Well, what happened to that water pump? We all have those questions. And on that meeting on Wednesday, you're going to get to ask even more questions. So I want to make sure that, like Supervisor Gorell said, Assemblyman Bennett, we are here to serve. My Board of Supervisors, the rest of them couldn't come because that'd be a Brown Act violation. It's not an official meeting, but we're here. All 5 of our supervisors are here. Our CEO, Savette Johnson, has been here every single meeting. We're there for you. It was really hard to be at the CP and have people going on duty saying, my wife just called and I can't go home and protect her. I want you to resonate that. They were at work and they couldn't protect their house, whether it was CP, California Highway Patrol, or a fireman, or a police officer. They were doing their job. Water company, they were doing their job and couldn't get to their own house. I just want you to resonate on that. So I appreciate everyone's help here. I know neighbors have gone to neighbors to help them. I got calls, I was putting out embers, Kelly, aren't you proud of me? And I'm like, yes. Our community comes together, and this is another time we are going to rally and come together because we are so resilient. We know what we're doing. So there might be another fire, and we'll get through it, but please make sure you catch up. VCemergency.com has all the latest information. It has the links to our information for recovery and all the press conferences. We will be continuing to do the press conferences to give you more information. We've got it on social media. We have great media coverage here for all the national stations going on. So keep tight. There might be frustrations, but know that we're really trying to help you. And that's a commitment that everyone has here. And there's a room full of people that they're not at their own home. They're far away or close by, but they're all committed. Every single meeting is saying, how do we get this fire out? We want to move people back in, and we want people safe. Very simple. These are our friends, our family, our home, and we care about you. So I'm really happy. I know this was last minute meeting, but we care about you and we need to answer questions. So that's why we're here today. So please be thoughtful, be kind, and be nice to each other. Make sure, I know we're going to get frustrated, but know that we're all trying to do the best for each other. And so like he said, there'll be light winds next week. It's going to perk some things up, but just rally together. If that's the message. So we're going to ask some questions and so forth, I believe. She'll pop out of here in a minute and tell us what's next. So thank you very much on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and all the electeds. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you all for the presentations. That concludes our presentation part, but now we'll open up for questions. We'll We'll start with the card questions first, that folks put the questions on the card. So Bruno, if you want to read us the first card. Rick, go ahead.
I'll start over here. What caused the fire to start? Do you have any idea? And when will that information be made available to the public?
Okay, the question was, what caused the fire to start, and when will the report become available? And I know everybody already knows the answer. The fire is under investigation. But what does that mean? It means our 4 dedicated arson investigators and CAL FIRE's 11 specialists are working around the clock to locate the origin and then find what caused it. So I can't tell you when the report's out because I can't tell you what the cause is, and each cause has a different complexity. Just know CAL FIRE sent 11 specialists, and our 4 investigators are working around the clock to find the cause, to write the report, to then let it out. So as soon as I know, you will know.
Rick, we'll take another question.
How will debris removal be handled? Water, mud, any kind of debris? And also, should we be concerned about ash in attics and basements?
Want to say it, Parker?
Good evening. My name is Patrick Maynard. I'm the Director of the Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services. As Supervisor Long and Supervisor Grell both mentioned earlier, the county's in the process of establishing a debris removal program. It's a rather complicated process, but I can tell you that's well underway. We anticipate being able to announce some information on that very soon. Often we work with you. It's up to you whether or not you want to participate, but we work with you to utilize the proceeds from your insurance as it relates to debris removal to help you get that done in a timely manner. It's a complicated process. For those of you that unfortunately lost homes, I just want to remind you, please be cognizant. There's a lot of hazardous materials on those sites. Until you get advice, do not move any of that material. Understand you want to go and look for belongings, but please be cognizant. There's a lot of hazardous stuff to watch out for. We ask that you not move anything until you receive direction from a trained professional. And for the other question, I believe it was ash in the attic. Anyone want to take that? No? I would just encourage you, again, be mindful of those things. If you have questions as it relates to any kind of contamination, reach out. There's a number of restoration contractors out there. They're happy to help you. Be mindful of the cost and make sure you read all those contracts, but there's a number of restoration contractors out there that can help you with removal of ash and other types of debris at your home.
So as a follow-up, possibly for that, when will the information be updated for FEMA?
Just, when will the information be updated for FEMA?
Yes.
Yes, so requesting FEMA support is a rather lengthy process. As was mentioned earlier, Sheriff Jim Freihoff proclaimed a local emergency. That emergency will be ratified by the Ventura County Board of Supervisors this Tuesday. In addition to our local proclamation of emergency, Governor Newsom has proclaimed a state of emergency. With those two things in place, that opens the eligibility window for us to apply for a couple of different funding options. One is a state fund called the California Disaster Assistance Act Fund that will provide money for firefighting and then recovery efforts. And then that also opens the door for us to make our case for 2 different FEMA funds. The FEMA Public Assistance Program, which again helps us repair public infrastructure, and then more importantly, the FEMA Individual Assistance Program. That FEMA Individual Assistance Program is a difficult program to obtain. And I want to kind of level set expectations when it comes to this program. We will do absolutely everything possible to fight for that program. And I can't understate the work that has already been put into this. But it is a difficult program to qualify for because it requires us to have upwards of 1,000 damaged structures. And I don't just mean damaged, I mean destroyed. So right now, we're still working on damage assessment. Those numbers are far below that number, thankfully. But that just means that we will need to work very hard around the clock to encourage our state and federal officials to get that FEMA Individual Assistance Program activated. These things take time. I would love to say that I can tell you, this week that these programs will be activated and available. They don't work that quickly, but they do take time, and those efforts are well underway.
Many of you are very familiar with vcemergency.com as a website for the response. I would encourage you to continue to go to vcemergency.com. However, we're also building out Ventura County Recovers or vcrecovers.com or .org. That will all you'll all end up in the right website by going to any of those URLs. So it's VC Recovers or Ventura County Recovers.org or .com. That website will be built out with the kind of information you'll need to rebuild moving forward post-incident, with debris removal and funding and programs available. As much information we can put there as possible for resources from the county and our partners. So again, that is an important website to start to visit. Thank you.
Rick, I have one question over here.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Fox. I've been through the Woolsey fire. I just want to give a heads up. If you're going to make a claim against your homeowner's insurance company, and there's coverage under your policy for issues like debris removal and/or contamination removal, please make sure your carrier is on notice of that and that you're proceeding, so they cannot later say that you didn't tell them and they won't pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick, another question?
We've gotten a number of questions about different environmental concerns, so I'll read one of them as a sample. We're in the Camarillo Heights area. Noticed during the night, the smoke smell gets significantly stronger and is mixed with a putrid odor. What is this? Why is it more prevalent at night? And then also along with that, when is it going to be safe to sort of open windows overnight? And how do we get the smell out of those places and things?
Okay, I'm going to start this with it. I'm not an environmental scientist and I'm not a public health official, but we have neither of them here tonight because this was meant to be a fire and law response. But I'll tell you what I know about smoke. Smoke lifts when it's warm, it lifts when it's dry, and it travels when it's windy. At night in Camarillo, it gets cool and it gets humid. So it gets cool and it gets humid, the smoke settles. The putrid smell, or the smell that doesn't come out, that's all the mixed of fuels that have burned. We've had brush burning, grass burning, trees burning, homes burning, cars burning, lithium-ion batteries burning, chemicals burning, plastic buckets burning, everything you can imagine, everything you have in your home in this building is all combined and it's all burnt together. So it's toxic and it smells. We will rely on the APCD and public health to tell us when the air is clean again and not toxic again. But what I would advise, when you smell smoke, get ready to leave if the smoke's not normally around. That should be a general rule for everybody. When you smell that burning smoke, be prepared to leave. And if you still smell that smoke outside, keep your houses closed up. Keep your houses closed up, be prepared to change the filters in your air conditioners, and if you still have all those air purifiers we bought during COVID because we thought they were going to make our environment safe, run those because it'll filter the toxins out.
One other item I do want to bring up with you is something that came up regarding ash, smoke that could possibly have traveled into your residences during the fire. I will tell you that what we see out there when we have wind-driven fires and embers, the ember production that is actually what causes a lot of our destruction that's out there in their homes, the embers get into everything. They get up underneath your tile roofs. People wonder, how does your house burn down? When people evacuate, you usually don't have someone walking up to you going, hey, we're going to be evacuating the house here in just a few minutes. Why don't you go around and close all the windows? And why don't you look to see if there's anything we need to secure so we can get out of here? Normally it is complete pandemonium. You're grabbing things that you can, a hard drive off a computer. People are grabbing safes, jewelry, and certain things, and they're going to exit the house as quickly as possible with a set of clothes. Usually you're not closing windows. Usually you're not hardening your home. What ends up happening is, yes, you can have production into your house. You can have ash, you can have smoke, you can have contaminants that travel into all aspects of your home, including your attic space. When they talk about smoke, I don't want you to ever feel that you cannot call us. If you smell smoke in your home or you think you have an issue that is held over from this fire, something that was in your attic, you pick up the phone, you call 911, you have a team of responders that will come out, and we will assure you that you do not have a fire in your house in an enclosed space. We have thermal imaging cameras. We can look at your home. We can look at void spaces, but please do not hesitate to call us, especially if you smell smoke and you think something is burning in your home.
Rick, next question.
Okay, here's another question. I've heard that the west side of the Camarillo Heights area did not have water to fire hydrants. I'm assuming this was because, well, whatever it was because, perhaps there was no power. What are the plans to not let this happen again?
I'm going to summarize the question here, and it was, I assume that water was lost on the west side of the Camarillo Heights due to, was it a pump burning out? Rick? A pump burning out? Lack of power? And what are we going to do to resolve this? So this question has come up a lot. There are water issues. There were water issues. And the root cause of all those water issues and what happened to create those water issues and how we're going to better next time, those will be discovered and those will be they're being investigated and they'll be reported on. Each of your independent water districts takes care of their own stuff, and how all of them do it, it's not up to me. It's not up to the Board of Supervisors, I believe. I believe it's up to the state, a state agency to mandate them. But let's talk about the water. So I talked about all the hundreds of fire trucks that were here, and Chief Cook talked about the 1,000 gallons a minute streams that were coming out. Now, we don't always use 1,000 GPM streams, but we do use a lot of water to fight these fires because we usually have one engine that's there, so they flow everything they can. So if you think of the hundreds of firefighters and the hundreds of fire trucks we had in the Heights and in the estates, every one of them was hooked up to a hydrant at one point, and they were flowing a lot of water, and those waters are held in tanks, so those tanks are going to lower. Whether the pumps kicked back on to fill those tanks or not, or whether they were burnt, or whether the power was out and they couldn't run, I don't know that. That's what we'll discover. But what I do know is that we had adequate firefighting water for a long time, and they used it. And then when those hydrants on the west side or in the estates, wherever they went dry, firefighters adjust to that. We're used to that. We deal with water and we find water. So what they did was simply drive to the next circuit and pull water and come back. They never disengaged from the firefight. They never quit fighting fire. They just found another hydrant, they found water, and they kept working. So did water run out? Yes. The cause of it, we don't know yet. The fact is we never quit fighting fire. So we'll figure out ways to harden it. If I know one thing for sure, Assemblymember Bennett will track that down, and he will work to see that it's resolved because he's done it before and he understands it. So we will find that out.
Next question.
Sir, anything that members of the public can volunteer to do to help with?
Right now, we don't have any place for our volunteers that would want to sign up at this moment. But I can tell you, the County of Ventura and certainly the Sheriff's Office lives and breathes because of the volunteers that we do have. We have our volunteers in policing. We have our explorers. We have our search and rescue teams. And so when we talked about this fire breaking out and we called for all available resources, we didn't have to wait necessarily for people to come from out of the county, because we have so many already trained volunteers who are ready to step up to the challenge right away. And I'm once again very proud of the efforts of all of our explorers, our volunteers in policing, and our search and rescue members. So if you're looking for an opportunity in the future to help, if those are things that are interest you, we would love for you to have sign up and have an opportunity to be there when that bell rings and we need your help right that time, whether it's for road closures, evacuations, and helping out in any way. That's when we need you. Thank you.
I love how we get each other's backs. So I wanted to make sure, on vcemergency.com and the Recover side, we will have a link that has the nonprofits, different funds that you can donate to. I know we have firemen, fire police who've lost homes, other people, Ventura County Community Foundation. There's a lot of different organizations, and we'll have a link there so that people can do it. I know our area, our community is very giving, even outside, and so we'll put that on there, vcemergency.com, so you can get the latest information. Thank you.
Next question, Rick.
What organizations can people get assistance from immediately?
For what?
Financial.
Financial. Okay, so I really need to ask you all for financial, for any assistance, Wednesday. Rancho Campagna Center, we're having a meeting. We will have all the information there. We will also be doing the LAC, which is for all the DMV, all that kind of stuff. We're gonna set it up. We're gonna tell you where it is. It's all, Supervisor Grell mentioned it earlier. We'll have more information on vcemergency.com, in recoveries. All that information will be there. And it's vcrecovers.com. Basically, one link will get you everywhere. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. Thank you.
Rick, do you have any more questions?
A couple more. What is being done to enforce brush clearance codes?
Repeat the question.
So the question that came up was, what's being done to enforce brush clearance codes? Let's start with this. Ventura County has a very robust program right now for our fire hazard reduction program. As you all know, as homeowners, you are sent a notice every year to abate the fire hazard 100 feet from your property. Here's where it gets interesting, though. We do enforce that, and we'll call it from areas in and around watershed areas. So anywhere, if you back up next to the open space, you back up to the brush, or you within 500 feet of that out there, what we end up doing is you get a notice every year to abate your hazard. And again, you all know that, that's out there. What we do to enforce this, if a property does not meet that criteria or is a failure to comply with that, we cut the lot for them. So we cut the lot, we have a local ordinance where we cut the lot, and then we bill it back on their property taxes at the end of the year. We are very, very strict with that. Do we work with people for the deadline? Absolutely. We try to. We work with you. We understand there's situations where people can't do it. We have various reasons. We have people that are sick. We have people that are injured. We have people that aren't capable of doing it. We will find ways to work with you to be able to abate fire hazard around houses. But I have to emphasize something real quick. No matter what, even if you clear your brush 100 feet from your residence, that is not a guarantee that your house will, not in the weather conditions that we just experienced. You look at the amount of embers and the ember production that is in there, and you have to understand too, when we're dealing with these types of fires, it is truly a conflagration, which means that a lot of the houses that burned internally on this fire were not up against open space. They happen from ember production. Your home catches fire, you have fire in your attic, you have fire around the exterior of your house, and what happens is as that fire grows and it spreads, your home catches fire and it spreads to the neighbor's house and it spreads across the street, pushed by the same wind that caused this. That phenomenon of that happening is truly a conflagration of house-to-house spread, where the actual homes become the fuel bed. And I will tell you, that is where the home hardening piece comes in, to make your properties more resilient in the future, so to eliminate these types of things from happening. It doesn't mean you will stop it altogether, because the amount of heat, and we call them BTUs, the amount of heat that is coming out of these residential structure fires is astonishing. I will tell you that I saw our fire companies out there, and people will say, well, I can't believe my house burned. I saw vinyl fencing burning that was putting off black, wretched smoke, and the flame links coming off a vinyl fence were greater than 30 feet. I want you to think about that. A white vinyl fence around your yard burning was putting off 30-foot flame links. You add the wind that you had to that vinyl fence burning, wood fences, any of those products of combustion, and it is pushing fire through entire neighborhoods. Another thing, too, that we didn't get a chance to mention is when the relative humidity is low, and our National Weather Service partners talk about the wind, one of the big components of wind is our relative humidity. When you drop the available moisture that is in the air, and you add that in conjunction with our wind, you have a recipe for disaster. That's where even when the relative humidity lowers and our fuel moistures, which is the available moisture that is in the vegetation around your homes, when that lowers to a certain percentage, All those embers can burn. I'm sure you'll go back and you'll see homes where the green grass in your front yard burned. All of your ornamental vegetation around your structures was burning. Things that should normally not burn when the humidity is up because it receives moisture from the air. But again, you add the elements of wind drying things out, low relative humidity, and everything becomes a receptive fuel source. People do not understand that. They don't understand, how is my home burning down? And you're going, the amount of vegetation burning around residences is astonishing. And then it only takes a little bit, and next thing you know, your house is on fire. It catches underneath your eave line, embers are blowing into your attic, and you have a house fire. And once again, I want to clear up one thing, because I've got a couple messages regarding a statement that I made about our apparatus and our equipment. We had a few fire engines that would be out on streets, and there'd be somebody in it, and they're going, wow, there's a fire engine parked in front of my house, and they're not doing anything. On the contrary, they are. What you don't realize is just because there's a driver in the seat of the fire engine doesn't mean they're not doing anything. There were several fire companies that I would come to the same conclusion about. But what happens is the firefighters are on foot going door to door, and the driver is moving down the street with the apparatus as people are deployed on the streets, going into homes, shutting windows, doors, trying to confine things. They're running around the back of yards. They're trying to see if they can move stuff away from the house, whether it's lawn furniture, outdoor combustibles. They're doing things out there on the streets. Oftentimes, you would think, well, why aren't they spraying water? What they're doing is hasty searches as well. A lot of our companies were involved in search and rescue and primary search operations, and I will tell you as a firefighter, it sends a little bit of chills up your spine when your company is told, Engine Company 54, the local company here, Engine Company 54, respond to Highland Drive. When you get to Highland Drive, do not engage in firefighting, engage in door-to-door search and rescue and remove people. We will engage the fire after we can account for people. How do you copy the message? And usually you'll hear a response back from our companies, we got it, we're on it. But to the person that's there, they're going, why aren't they doing anything? And like I said, what they are doing is they are engaged in active life-first protection of people. And it doesn't always align with the vision that we are seeing. I'm sure we see it in the media every single day, a short video clip of the big picture, right? And it leads you all to believe one thing, but the whole story is what we're trying to tell you, is that we put ourselves into a certain mode of operation that is to protect people first, and oftentimes that's at the expense of property. And I do apologize for that.
Is the food in our pantry and refrigerators and freezers safe? And also, what's the potable water situation for people returning to their homes?
I'm the lucky one that just keeps standing up again, and I'll say I'm not a public health official and I'm not a food biologist or whoever would test food. I'm going to say on BC Recovers, we're going to have to get intel from our public health agency, and we're going to have to get intels from other regulatory agencies that know how long it takes food to spoil in a refrigerator when the power's been off. I don't think it probably takes long. It probably takes a few days, and if your power's been off for a few days, the food in the fridge is probably bad. The food in the freezer is probably bad. We'll get that information. Like we've said multiple times, we have an informative meeting on Wednesday. We'll have all those specialists here. This was meant to be a fire department response operations, law enforcement response and operation to get those questions out. So you could go to this meeting on Wednesday and start asking technical questions like, is my milk still good? I don't know. The food in your pantry, we've gone through fires before and we found that food that's in plastic containers, plastic bags that are wrapped are still good. Stuff that's in cardboard or stuff that was left out on the counter, it can absorb smoke. I'd throw that away. So again, I'm not a food specialist. We will have answers. We do have county employees that specialize in health of food. We will be able to get those answers.
All right, so we'll be over here. We'll take questions over here. If you do have a question, please raise your hand and we will bring the mic to you to make sure we can hear your question.
Thank you so much. Can you talk about what communication look like for indigenous communities whose first language is usually Mixteco or Zapotec?
Patrick, do you want to? Sure.
So predominantly when our press information officers put out anything, it's usually in English and Spanish combined. We rely on our other partners, specifically the radio community network. Down in Oxnard, I know they have radio networks that are specific in Mixteco. I know that it's not a written language, and so they're having to translate things from English to Spanish and Spanish to Mixteco, but we definitely rely on those partners. I do not have anybody on my staff that speaks Mixteco. I know there's several dialects of it, but we rely very heavily on our community partners to be able to relay that to their communities in their native language.
Can I just have a follow-up question? When it's an emergency evacuation and it's like a person-to-person interaction, can you talk a little bit more about that?
So when we're doing emergency evacuation notices, we give it in, once again, English and Spanish, predominantly through the VC alert messaging or the wireless alert messaging. And we, once again, we're relying on all of our partners that speak multiple languages. There's a lot of them. I don't have staff that speak all those languages, so we rely on all of our community partners to help pass that message along. Certainly, if we're coming to the door and we're yelling, it's a good time to pay attention. And if you don't understand and there's smoke in the air, we're telling you to get out. We're going to be doing a lot of pointing of fingers to make it happen.
I do have a quick reminder, there is a sign-up sheet on the back. If you were looking for recovery questions that need help, the county is here to help you. Please fill that form out in the back. We'll take a question over here.
I want to shed a little light on the lack of water. I'm up in, not in the Heights, but in Las Posas Hills area. That area is served by Crestview Mutual Water Company. And that the principal well on the west side and the east side where Old Coach was in some of those homes is served by well number 4, which is on El Viso and Valley Vista. Now that well is in the last years of its useful life. It's been there 35 years. It was dedicated by the developer of Las Posas Hills. We've been trying to replace that well for about 7 years. We applied to have it replaced 3 blocks from there, and in the replacement, we proposed an auxiliary power generator, because well 4 does not have that. Edison failed. That was part of the reason there was no water. Edison failed. We didn't have an auxiliary power generator. They brought a portable one in, but with the fire trucks and with all the chaos, it took a long time, and that was down for a good bit. I think it also serves the water company in the reservoir and the pumping. So all I would like to say is I just think that we need, when we propose these well replacements, they can always be somewhat controversial. You know, people object to a number of things, and many things need to be mitigated. We need to be sensitive to our neighbors and their concerns. But when you are sensitive, and issues keep coming, and many of them are red herrings, we've got to recognize that and be able to move. So we need to replace that well. That well is 35 years old, and it doesn't have much more useful life. Now, the other well that we have, it's off of Crestview, was in the epicenter of the fire, and I think the building that was in burned. I don't know if that well is functional or not. I don't know if it impaired the well. We have done an extensive study to try to find the best site that would mitigate people's concerns. We put together a task force of people that were opposed, the people who were for it. They've been working for months. We're going to come back to the Board of Supervisors with a proposal for that replacement. And when we do, I just urge you to recognize legitimate arguments. We want to be sensitive to neighbors and their concerns. But at the end of the day, we have to have water, and this episode, I think, demonstrates that with spades, does it not? So we need to cut through the unnecessary bureaucratic barriers. We need to be reasonable, but at the end of the day, we need to get it approved. All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll take a couple more questions. Do I have any more questions on this side over here? Ricky up front. Wait till the mic gets to you.
Hi, I live 380 East Highland, all the way up on that driveway. We don't think, did anybody ever come up? I mean, we weren't evacuated, but I don't know if it was too quick, because when I walked out the door, the heat was in my face, and we barely got out. If my boyfriend hadn't canceled his job a half hour earlier, I wouldn't have made it, and our uncle, who just had his leg amputated, wouldn't have made it. Thank God for him carrying us, throwing us, and got us down the driveway. But I just wanted to know, we probably couldn't be evacuated. I mean, it was probably too quick. I think it just came, they watched it come over the hill, and it rolled down right, so I just want to know, I mean, just so we know, if we couldn't have been, I mean, I think you guys couldn't have got ahead of it, right? I mean, to us.
So I can answer a piece of it. If somebody came up or not, I can't confirm that. We have most of the geographical commanders that were commanding this fire here, and when we break out, we can talk about specifics. But like I said, we had 1,000 firefighters here. We had hundreds of fire trucks running around. If somebody specifically, it could have been a unit from Los Angeles, from Orange County, from San Diego, it could have been anybody. So I don't know if they went up your particular driveway. They typically do. We typically go house to house to house, and like you said, this thing was moving fast. At some points in the fire, it was burning 2,000 acres an hour. Okay. No, and I understand, and it's a valid question. So when we break out, if you have questions like that, we'll have all of us here, and we'll answer it the best we can.
I just also want to say that, if you're at the epicenter of a fire or any emergency, there's a good chance that you're not going to get evacuated because we're not going to get there in time, right? This is why it's really important to pay attention to the weather alerts that you get. So you self-rescue, right? I know that I think when I did one of the press conferences, I talked about how many houses were already empty by the time we got there. There was hundreds of homes that were already empty. Either people were at work, out of town, or had self-evacuated before we got there. So just for everybody, you don't have to wait for us to tell you to leave. You can leave. If you feel unsafe, leave.
He's right behind you. He's coming too. Hold on one second. We just got to get the mic so everyone can hear.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The requirement to do brush clearance of 100 feet has been around for a long time. I don't know if that's 50 years ago that number came up with, but with the weather conditions changing, has there been any research or technical thought that it should be 150 clearance or 200? I know some insurance companies, to insure your home now, ask for that to be 200. So where's the community at with that? Is that something the fire department or the public servants would think about changing to possibly make us safer?
Okay, so I can answer a lot of this question. In the 100 feet, it's been around for decades, and we were and remain one of the most progressive counties in the country, as far as I know, because of the support from our Board of Supervisors to actually enforce that 100 feet to 100% compliance. So our 100 feet is an extraordinary feat because a lot of people don't want to cut all the brush out. So the 100 feet was scientifically based on radiant heat, and it's the radiant heat coming from the brush that lights solid objects on fire. Like Chief Cook described, the ember cast in these fires is what's damaging and destroying so many of these homes. It's the ember cast from house to house combustion going into the homes. We are actively, as an industry, working with insurance, working with our Board of Forestry. We have professional units of fire marshals that are looking at this continually. We're changing building codes. If folks were paying attention, our building codes here in Ventura County changed dramatically a couple years ago because, again, our Board of Supervisors had the courage to adopt one of the most restrictive building codes in the industry, and people were pissed. Well, those houses, they survive fires better. They have enclosed eaves, they have no openings, they have non-combustible siding, they have non-combustible roofs, they have dual pane windows. They're very tough for embers to get into, but embers still can get in because a lot of times, as Chief Cook said, people leave doors open when they leave. People leave garages open with man doors open and sparks get in. These changes are tough. You're going to see changes like Zone 0 come, new construction. You can't have flammable anything within 5 feet of your home. Now everybody thinking here of what you have within 5 feet of your home, your favorite rose bushes, your favorite tree, a fence, something flammable. Eventually we're going to get to a point, whether the insurance industry mandates it or we adopt new codes, that stuff's probably all going to go away. And I live in this zone. And I've been working on this with my wife, my own wife, who has studied fire for 3 decades with me. she doesn't want to get rid of some of her favorite roses, and I understand, I get it. I don't want to either because they're beautiful, but it's going to happen. So yes, we are doing a lot. My fire marshal is here in the back, Joe Morelli. He's one of the leaders in the state on this. He studies it. He's part of multiple boards that work on it. He will be in the back if you want to ask specific questions, but with your passion for it and your desire to make change, remember when we go to make those changes, they're going to need support because they're going to be policy decisions. So that's what I can answer on that. If you want absolute specifics, Joe Morelli will be in the back.
Thank you.
You have a question on this side? Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say we all have enormous appreciation for all of you because we were up there in the middle of it, and thank you very much. We wouldn't be here without you. So I happen to be a horse owner, so we equestrians are very, very tuned in to watching the fires, and we know we have plans in place. I have VC alerts, I have Pulse Point, I have Point to Point, I have Distant Measure, I have Windy, I have every weather app, and I watch it. And I completely agree with shutting down. I have overhead wires. I'm on Marine View, which was really damaged. And many of my neighbors lost their homes completely. I lost the whole horse property and got my horse out by luck. I know Edison needs to cut the power, but we have no communication. We don't have cell service up there. Marine View. So all of my neighbors, Marine View, Vista Del Mar, I've talked to every neighbor. We get alerts if we're down at Starbucks. Nobody had an alert. I'm texting my assistant in Simi. She's getting them, but they're late. We need to get out of your way. We need to have time to execute a plan. You know, we have a plan. We want to get out of your way, let you do your jobs. We want time to load our animals. But we had nothing. And two of my friends are retired LAPD officers, and they have horses, and they were the ones that were texting us. And everybody's arguing, saying it's right, it's not right, we don't have the information. And by the time we got out, we were stuck in that traffic jam in all of law enforcement and firefighters' way. What is the plan, or what should we be doing differently so that we can get that information and let you do your jobs and not add, additional stress on our resources and have potential loss of life?
Thank you for that question. Certainly, we use a variety of methods for notifying people, both ahead and during an emergency, but all of those systems have limitations. And if I understood your comments correctly, you're in an area that has limited cell service. None of our systems, again, can penetrate those areas that don't have cell service. So for me, this boils back down to planning. And if you know you live in an area that does not have cellular service and you don't have ready access to your television to see an alert come across the bottom of your TV, then you need to take your planning one step further and communicate with your folks or your friends, your family that live in areas that do have this service. Have them register your address in VC Alert and receive those notifications on your behalf and develop ways to try to get in contact with you. Again, if you don't have cell service and you're in those areas though, again, there's no way for us to get a hold of you. It's unfortunate. In some cases, there are locations that have siren systems. Having a siren system that covers our entire county would be extremely difficult, but you live in a hazardous area. So again, planning is key in these cases. Living in these areas does not come without risk. And, I wish I could tell you there was a magical way to get you those alerts. There's not. There are just some areas that are extremely difficult. So again, I would encourage you to take your planning seriously. I appreciate the fact that you have all these notifications. It very much sounds like you have all the ones I have, so I appreciate that. But take that planning one step further if you can, and think of some of these non-traditional means, because we just can't get to you sometimes.
All right, do I have any more questions on this side? I have one in the back there. She's raising.
Hi, we live in Zone 3, and it still shows that there's an evacuation order, so I was just wondering if there's an expected time of when that'll be lifted. And then we also got a notification that our water has been contaminated, so I was just wondering what's going on with the water and if you guys have any information on that.
As the chief mentioned earlier and the sheriff mentioned earlier, the evacuation orders continue to be lifted. We lifted quite a few more today. Again, it's been a long few days, so Zone 3 specifically, where exactly that encompasses. What I can tell you is if you still have an evacuation order in your area, it could be due to a couple of things. One, there's still efforts to take care of utility damage that's out there, so we're looking at that. Every morning we meet with the incident management team to evaluate those evacuations, and I can't tell you more than anybody that we want you back in your home. We do not want to keep you out of your home, so we are constantly looking for creative ways to surgically develop those evacuation areas and reduce them as much as we can. So we're still working on that. I'm hopeful that in the next day or so, we'll be able to lift the remainder of most of the evacuation order areas with the exception of those that were heavily impacted by fire. Those areas heavily impacted by fire, once we get the green light from the incident management team, we intend on doing a controlled entry period into those areas. We really want to give residents that were impacted by the fire in a severe way an opportunity to get into their homes, take their time, not be bothered by other members of the public that don't live there, and do what they need to do. So once we get that green light from the IMT, which I believe is likely in the next 24 hours, we'll start that process.
We'll take another question over here. Rick, your side.
Yeah, we have a unique opportunity here. What has happened in the past has been these wildfires are started by the brush that grows in the canyons, and we've talked to the fire department before about establishing a program to generally clear these areas. And it's a lot less expensive to go in and cut the brush out than it is to replace the 132 homes that have been destroyed. And also, you've got 1,000 firefighters who bravely came out and left their own posts, a lot of them undefended. So let's establish a plan now that the brush is gone to plant things that won't burn. How about that for an idea? It'll be a lot cheaper than us being back here again in 10 years and going through this meeting again.
Thank you. We have another question. Rick up front.
Now that the hillsides are all burned and we're talking about what happened, what I'd like to know is what do we do about the flooding that's going to happen and the mudslides? I'm below an area that I see coming down, and I'd like to know something where we can prevent it.
Sir, I'm very glad you asked that question, because as I drive through those neighborhoods, as terrible as it is to see the damage that's been done to those houses, I'm fearful for the winter. Rain is a powerful thing, and in post-fire conditions, we stand a huge danger. So I can tell you on a couple of fronts, there are teams already being lined up to go out and do an assessment of the watershed. CAL FIRE has a watershed assessment team that's already been ordered up. I'm not sure when they're starting their process. They're here, perfect. All right, so they're here, they're already working. Here locally, we'll also be working with our County Public Works Department, as well as representatives from my office, Office of Emergency Services, and also the fire department to go out and, again, take a look at the various locations. And if there's something that we can do to mitigate that hazard, we'll do what we can. More importantly, we'll work to develop plans and then ultimately have another town hall and educate residents on, what we're looking for and what you can do to hopefully stay safe. But these will be trying times, especially if we see rain this winter. So I just want to remind you all, you have an opportunity now to prepare. Work to clean those drains. Rain season is right around the corner. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but take the opportunity now to prepare your home for those things. They will happen.
One other thing to add, just on behalf of the incident management team that is here. So when we have large-scale incidents, there's several phases to incident management. The first one, obviously, when the incident starts, it's 100% suppression. We're looking at bringing resolve to the incident, but it doesn't stop there. And the men and women of CAL FIRE that have come out to join the County of Ventura and all of their partners, one of the phases of incident management is suppression repair. And what ends up happening is a really a robust plan is put together to see what damage has occurred from the fire. And yes, a team that's coming in to look at soils, look at drainage, to look at what the potential is for slides and impacts to the communities is going on when that team shows up here. But not only that, the incident management team takes all the resources that are out in the field right now, and they just apply another layer of work as they geographically have divided up this fire. So any of the effects that happen during suppression, such as utilizing heavy equipment on the landscape, can take its toll. So what happens is we go back and try to repair all that to limit the damage that occurs when it rains. Everything from water bars, we pull back brush and equipment, we clean out culverts, we look for things that could happen based upon what the fire impacts were. So there's a few different stages to that incident management side of the house. On top of that, the Ventura County Fire Department is no stranger to flooding here. As a matter of fact, a lot of people probably don't know this, but this fire station, when it was open, was underwater right here. Some of you remember those strong rains in the 90s that came through Ventura County. There was an actual river going through this apparatus room right here and out the back. There was about a foot of water flowing from the streets here through this fire station. People wouldn't believe that, but it was. And I will tell you that we take things very seriously. All of our wildland forces, they transition from wildland firefighting hand crews to flood mitigation task forces during the winter season, and we're prepared to deal with those type of things. It doesn't mean damage won't occur, but it means it's on our radar and we're prepared to deal with it.
Absolutely.
It's a great question about preparing for flooding, for debris flows, for mud flows as a result of the scorching of the fire. We've had a number of conversations about that, and as you just heard, there are tactical teams that are out there to doing assessments. These assessments will come back to the board, and I know that Supervisor Kelly Long and I and the entire board are committed to finding solutions related to infrastructure, addressing the issues that are raised in the investigations and the assessments that will come back to our Board of Supervisors. I'm committed now, and I just spoke with the Chief of Fire Chief Dustin Gardner. I'm committed to holding another town hall before the rainy season and inviting those who are in these affected areas to address issues and to learn what you can do and what we're doing related specifically to the wet season that will come up through the winter and on mud flows and debris flows and flooding. So stand by for more information on that, but we're committed to doing a town hall specifically on preparing for what happens afterwards. Thank you.
Well, this meeting has ran about 2 hours right now, so we want to make sure that we're getting your guys' questions answered. So we will have breakouts with folks. So right now we will conclude the presentation portion of it. I hope this has been informational for you. I'm hoping you got some questions answered. If you haven't, please stay around and ask us those questions.